Now we're going to move on to Joakim Molander's presentation. Joakim is the Chief Evaluator at the Swedish International Development Agency, and he's also the chair of the task team for evaluation capacity building at the evaluation network of OECD's Development Assistance Committee. He's also an evaluation specialist with wide experience in working with evaluation in Sweden. So I'm going to give him the floor. He's going to be speaking about the role of donors in supporting the development of evaluation capacities in developing countries. So welcome, Joakim. Thank you for being here with us. And to all the participants, keep posting your questions and comments on the chat box.
Be here. I need to start the presentation. Yes. So just to start out with saying who we are, or the network I'm representing. EvalNet is an evaluation network of the Development Assistance Committee, and the members are countries which provide development funding, donors that is. So it's mostly countries, but we also have the World Bank, African Development Bank, and the UN organizations there as observers. And we agree on norms and standards and principles for development evaluation. I think the most famous contribution is our 5 evaluation criteria: relevance, sustainability, effectiveness, efficiency, and impact. The network also have task teams, and one of the task teams is for evaluation capacity development, and I'm chairing that one. Around 15 countries participating in that task team. So what we have been doing is the last 6 months or so, we have been looking at what would we like evaluation capacity to look like 5 years from now, and how can we as donors contribute to that. And this is the vision for evaluation capacity that we have agreed upon in the network. And as you can see here, I think some of the more important parts of the vision is that partners in development, that's all the different countries and organizations that contribute to development, regard evaluation as a pillar of good governance and demand and use evaluation for learning and accountability. So I think the most important part of that one is that evaluation should be part of a good governance agenda. It's not something separate from other parts of the good governance agenda, like good audit and good rules and regulations, etc. Something else to highlight there is perhaps number 4. National and regional evaluation networks are growing and play an important role in strengthening demand, use and quality of evaluation and establishing evaluation as a profession. This is what we would like to see in 5 years from now. And we also, number 6, we would like to see that more partners in development invest resources into evaluation capacity development. So now, what is the role of our network, the network of evaluation functions of big donors? Well, this is what we have agreed on. It is to strengthen coordination between EvalNet members, between ourselves, that is, to share lessons and analysis to develop good practices in evaluation capacity development. We also want to strengthen coordination on evaluation capacity development with emerging evaluation networks and existing networks like yourself. So that's a link that we see is very important for us to contribute to evaluation capacity development in a better way than today. Number 3 is an important one. It is about to develop and implement an advocacy strategy for evaluation capacity development, where links to the requirements of evaluation in the SDGs are made explicit. We think this is a really important role for us as evaluation functions within the big donors to advocate for why evaluation is an important part of the good governance agenda. So we need to persuade others than evaluators that this is actually something important, and that's why we need a good advocacy strategy. So we also think that we can take on the role as catalysts of evaluation capacity development within our organizations. So that is, for example, I sit at the evaluation function at Swedish SIDA, which is a big donor, and what I can do and my colleagues on the evaluation side within SIDA could do is to persuade our colleagues on the operational side to invest resources into evaluation capacity development. Because obviously they have the big funds. We as evaluation functions do not have these big funds. But in big democracy programs, etc., we think evaluation should be included. But we need to persuade our colleagues that that is important. Number two, we also want to increase the use of evaluations undertaken by other partners in development and initiate more collaborative evaluations to strengthen ownership and share knowledge and experience. So that is, we as donors should use more evaluations that are made by our partner countries, partner organizations, rather than commissioning and conducting our own evaluations. And we also, when we do our own evaluation, we want to do them in a collaborative way. That is, we should really interact and work together with evaluation managers and evaluators in the countries where we do evaluations. And number three, we also want to take on the role of promoters of evaluation capacity development in international evaluation fora by active cooperation with partners in development. That goes to the advocacy work that I was talking about previously, that we as big donors can be part of advocating for evaluation capacity development. So that's basically it, where we see our role as donors. Now, what we are doing at the moment, we did a mapping of all the initiatives that we are taking part of currently, is, or rather what we financed mostly. So we finance training of individuals, like IPTET you might have heard about. So basically IPTET is financed by members of our network. We conduct, as I said, joint collaborative evaluations where we involve partner countries and other organizations when we commission evaluations. We also finance a lot of networking. I think, as you know, Finland, for example, have been very an important donor to Eval partners and many other networks, and we also support a lot of different networking events, conferences, like the upcoming conference in Mexico, for example. What you might know less about is that we do a lot of institution building also, that is building the capacity of different ministries and agencies and their capacity to commission and do evaluations of government programs in partner countries. And we also support and finance programs that try to promote the enabling environment for evaluation in different countries. This is a lot of text, but just to highlight a few things that we as a network were having an exercise where we thought, what have we learned so far about the different components of our programs? So when it comes to training of individuals, we have been saying that it's important to tailor-make training to the specific needs of target groups and make it more demand-driven. So IPTET, for example, if you know about IPTET, we think is maybe not enough demand-driven all the time, and it's not really specific enough for different audiences. So we think we could do more in terms of e-learning and on-the-job training for different professionals. Jump to the next slide. In terms of networking, we have learned that there is a big interest in the partner countries. And I've heard colleagues working with networking saying that it's becoming something of a grassroots movement with lots of energy. And your network is an example of that. And we also think that networks have played an important role in building the enabling environment for evaluation that is so important for the profession. It's also important for newcomers in evaluation to get to know other evaluators and exchange professional knowledge. And it provides for a north-south dialogue on evaluation, for example, in the upcoming big conference in Mexico. On the institutional building, we also have noticed and learned that demand and political will is really crucial for that to work. So we need good champions in organizations that want to develop evaluation capacity within a ministry or within an agency. And then we can go in and finance it. So financing needs to come after a demand has been expressed. On the enabling environment, we have not so much experience so far, but the work has mostly been with parliamentarians and some good lessons coming out of that. But I think also, as I expressed earlier, that what is very important about the enabling environment is to see evaluation as part of good governance. So when it comes to our priorities for the future, we think it's important to embed evaluation capacity development into development programs. So for example, if Sweden is supporting a country program in Rwanda or some other country where we're big donors, evaluation capacity building should be part of that country program. It's part of our good governance support. And we think other donors should do that. And that is something we have agreed on in this big network of donors. We also think it's more important to focus on developing evaluation systems in countries and in institutions rather than just training individuals. We need evaluation embedded in ministries and agencies, and also in civil society. Civil society can, of course, play an important role. We also think it's important to put more emphasis on training commissioners of evaluations rather than just the ones who actually do the evaluations. We need good capacity at different levels to commission evaluations so they can be well suited for the needs of an organization or a country. So I think I stopped there. I had another slide, but I stop here to take questions. Thank you.
Hello, I'm just going to check on the camera. We just switched with Sophia. I'm just with Evalio, and I'll be taking Q&A now. We have some questions. The first one, what opportunities Swedish International Development Agency provide for young evaluators, and what funding can be accessible for them? Second question is, we've experienced funders hesitant to provide fully adequate funding for evaluation capacity, since it seems like an easy area to cut in comparison to other parts of the program that are seen as more essential. This results in underfunding evaluation capacity while still expecting a robust evaluation. How do you recommend approaching this challenge? I'll read another question if we have some more time. Thank you.
Currently, it's only actually most donors, including Sweden, we provide very limited funding from the different evaluation functions in the big organizations. So I think usually if you have good ideas at country level, what you should try to do is to look for the embassies in these countries. For example, the Swedish embassy. They are the ones who take funding decisions on country basis. So that's the easiest way to access the countries. But on a more global level, currently, I would say it's quite difficult to know how to approach us and what to do about it. It's usually you have to look at the website and then see the different donors' websites to see where you could go into the organization with your questions. But I can admit it's not that easy. So usually I say start at the country level and at embassies to look for funding. Then I should also say that what we usually do as bilateral donors is that we fund organizations that can provide funding in their turn. If you know about the CLEAR initiative, for example, that's funded by us and the UK and some of the big banks. And then CLEAR has funding for different projects and programs. So then it's better to approach CLEAR than to address us as donors directly most of the time. And on the second question, it was a long question, but if I understood it correctly, it was how to make sure that in a big development program that evaluation is not cut out as an important part of programming. I think that's a good question. What we have been looking for on the Swedish side is to more look at real-time evaluation or embedded evaluation or developmental evaluation, if you know these different concepts. So that is to include evaluation as a component of the program as it goes along. So you do not only commission evaluation midterm or at the end of a program, but rather have evaluators following the program implementation during the full program period. So then it's actually obviously part of the program budget from the outset.